Eli Cross never expected his quiet life to change. He was just a human mechanic, fixing old ships in the dusty corners of New Terra Station. He worked alone, slept in a small room above his workshop, and rarely talked to anyone. His only companion was an old cleaning robot that hummed more than it cleaned. But everything changed the day a strange message arrived. It was not a letter, not a transmission, but a glowing orb, floating into his shop. Eli Cross. The orb said, in a deep, royal voice, by royal decree, you are summoned to the Galactic Capital immediately. Eli stared at the orb, confused. He had never been to the Galactic Capital, never even left his quadrant. But before he could reply, the orb pulsed again. Your presence is required at the reading of King Dorthan's will. Eli blinked. Who the hell is King Dorthan? The orb only repeated the message, then vanished in a blink of light. 3 days later, Eli was standing on the marble floor of the Grand Hall of Velmorax Prime, surrounded by shimmering aliens in golden robes, cameras floating in the air, and the massive round table of the Galactic Council. He felt small, out of place, like a grease-stained tool in a room of priceless crystals. Everyone stared at him, some with curiosity, others with disgust. An announcer floated forward, wearing a crown of floating lights. The will of His Majesty, King Dorthan of Velmorax, ruler of 5 galaxies, conqueror of stars, is now to be. Read, the announcer said loudly. The room went silent. To the council, I leave my libraries and ships. The announcer continued. To my generals, I leave command of the outer fleet. Eli yawned quietly, wondering why he was even here. Then the announcer paused, eyes glowing as the next words lit up. To the human, Eli Cross of New Terra Station, the voice echoed. I leave my daughter, Princess Leora, and her full inheritance, including all royal rights and bloodlines. The hall exploded in noise, gasps, laughter, and shocked whispers filled the chamber. The human? Someone shouted, he inherits her? Another voice laughed, that poor fool, does he even know what she looks like? Eli stood frozen. His heart pounded like a hammer. Wait, what? I inherit a princess. An alien noble with 4 eyes leaned toward him, grinning. Congratulations, human. You now own the galaxy's greatest embarrassment. The council roared with laughter. Cameras zoomed in on his confused face, broadcasting it live across 1,000 systems. Eli looked around, trying to understand. Why me? He asked. I've never met the king. I'm just a mechanic. A cold voice answered from the shadows. It belonged to Lord Creel, one of the most powerful council members. The king was a strange man, human. Perhaps he saw something in you. But the princess, another counselor added with a cruel smile, has been locked away for years. She is not what most would call beautiful. Whispers followed those words. Eli heard phrases like cursed, mutant, and dangerous. Before he could respond, 2 royal guards approached him, tall and silent. Their armor shimmered like black water. Come with us, one said. Your inheritance awaits. They led him out of the grand hall, leaving the laughter and cruel jokes behind. Eli felt numb. He wasn't rich, wasn't famous, and now he was tied to a royal alien woman the entire galaxy seemed to hate. But as the guards took him to a small royal shuttle, something in the back of his mind whispered, why did the king choose him? Why now? And who really was Princess Leora? The shuttle doors closed behind him, sealing with a hiss, and as the engines hummed to life, Eli realized there was no turning back. Whatever waited ahead, it was bigger than him, and it had already begun. Asterisk. The royal shuttle flew fast and silent across the glowing skies of Velmorax Prime. Eli sat stiffly in his seat, hands gripping the edge of the metal bench. Outside the window, tall alien towers rose like crystal teeth, stretching into the clouds. He had not spoken since the shuttle launched. The guards were silent too, their silver armor reflecting the soft blue lights inside. Finally, the shuttle began to descend. They were heading toward a dark, isolated island, not part of the main city. A small fortress stood there, surrounded by mist and shield walls. "This is where she lives?" Eli asked quietly. One of the guards nodded once. "The princess has not left this place since she was a child." The shuttle landed with a low hiss. The doors opened and cold air rushed inside. Eli stepped out slowly. The place felt forgotten. Black stone walls, overgrown vines, no guards on patrol. Just a heavy silence. He was led through long hallways, past statues covered in dust, paintings with scratched-out faces, and flickering lights. The deeper they walked, the heavier. The air felt at last. The guard stopped at a tall wooden door. "She's waiting inside," the guard said. "Speak with respect." Eli nodded, heart pounding. He pushed open the door and stepped into a quiet chamber lit only by a single red lantern. She was there, standing by the window, her back to him. Her body was wrapped in layers of dark silk, tall and slender, but with strange curves and shapes that didn't match any species Eli had seen before. Her long fingers were almost clawed, her shoulders broad, and her skin shimmered faintly, like oil over water. "You're him," she said softly, not turning around. Her voice was calm, but full of weight. "Yeah, I guess I am," Eli replied. Eli Cross, human, mechanic. Very confused, she turned to face him, slowly. Her face was different. Alien, yes, but not ugly, not to him. Her features were sharp and smooth, her eyes large and golden, with vertical slits, her mouth small, her nose barely there. Her skin glowed with soft colors that changed as she moved, but it was her eyes that struck him, not her shape or color. Her eyes were filled with pain, years of loneliness, and something more, something dangerous. "I know what they say about me," she said, "that I am cursed, that I am a beast." "I've heard worse," Eli said, trying to smile. "I've dated humans." She didn't laugh, just stared at him. "My father never looked at me after I changed," she said. "He locked me here, told the galaxy I was sick, said no one should see me." Eli's smile faded. "And now you belong to me, like some broken tool left in a will." "No," she said firmly, stepping closer. "Now I'm free." Before he could ask what she meant, a sharp noise echoed through the hall. A crash, then the sound of movement. The guards outside shouted, then silence. Eli turned toward the door. Instinct kicking in, he reached for a metal rod near the fireplace. Holding it like a weapon, the door burst open. A figure in dark armor rushed in with a plasma blade, heading straight for the princess. Eli moved fast, slamming the rod into the attacker's helmet. The intruder stumbled, and Leora raised her hand. A flash of energy sparked from her skin, striking the attacker and knocking them unconscious. Breathing hard, Eli looked at her in shock. "What was that?" She stared at her glowing hand, then looked up at him. "You still want to keep me?" she whispered. Eli dropped the rod and nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think I do, and for the first time." The princess smiled, just a little. But deep inside the fortress, someone else was watching, and they were not smiling. Eli Cross had only been on Velmorax for 2 days, yet his name was already burning across 1,000 systems. Every news screen, every gossip drone, every interstellar feed showed his face, next to hers. "Human inherits alien curse." One headline read, "Beast Princess and her fool." Another mocked, "He owns her now." But can he survive her? Eli scrolled through the headlines in silence, standing on the balcony of the fortress. The air smelled of ocean and old stone. The princess, Leora, sat nearby, quietly combing her hair with long, delicate fingers. "You're famous now," she said without looking up. "I was already famous," Eli replied. "In my corner of New Terra Station, I was the best engine fixer for 10 whole blocks." She gave a tiny smile, then returned to brushing. "Do their words bother you?" she asked. Eli shrugged. "I've been called worse, but I never thought I'd be broadcast across the galaxy for inheriting someone." "You didn't inherit me," she said gently. "You inherited responsibility, protection, and a promise. The king never had the courage to fulfill. Eli turned to face her. "You're not what they say you are," he said firmly. "Not cursed, not broken." Her hands paused, her golden eyes meeting his. "You don't see me as ugly," she said. Not asking, stating, surprised. "You're different," Eli said slowly. "But I've worked with ships all my life, the best ones. They never look like they belong, but inside, power, precision, beauty. That's what you are." Liara looked away, her voice barely a whisper. "No one has ever spoken to me like that." Their moment was shattered by a loud knock at the gates, followed by shouting. One of the palace guards rushed in. "Out of breath, Lord Creel has arrived," he said. "With cameras," Eli's jaw tightened. "Of course he has." Moments later, the fortress gates opened, and Lord Creel stepped through like a conquering general, tall, armored in dark gold, with a cruel grin always ready on his face. Floating cameras followed him like obedient insects. "Eli Cross," he announced, voice booming. "The Galactic Council wishes to see how the inheritance is adapting." Eli stepped forward. Liara stayed behind him. Silent and unreadable, Creel walked past him and stopped in front of the princess. His eyes scanned her, not with curiosity, but calculation. "I see you are still breathing," he sneered. "How disappointing." Eli stepped between them, his voice calm but firm. "She's more alive than anyone I've met." The cameras zoomed in, recording every word. Creel tilted his head. "Amused. Such devotion," Creel said mockingly. "Do you love her already, human, even with that face?" Eli didn't answer. Instead, he turned to the camera and said, "Your council honors bloodlines, doesn't it? Then honor this one, because whether you like it or not, she's royal, and she's under my protection now." The camera lights flickered. Reporters gasping through their devices. Liara stood taller, her eyes glowing just a little brighter. Creel's smile faded, just a bit. He turned away, signaling the end of his visit. But before he left, he whispered to Eli, "You've just painted a target on your back, mechanic." Eli didn't flinch. "I've had worse. I once dated a smuggler's daughter." Creel left in silence, his camera struggling to catch up. That night, while Liara slept in her chamber, Eli stood alone in the hallway, holding an old datapad the king had left behind. In it, a message played on loop, the king's voice broken and tired. "If you're hearing this, Eli, then you've been chosen. You are the only one I trust with her, because she is more than blood, more than power. She is the last hope." Eli stared at the screen, mind racing. What had he stepped into? Somewhere far above in the floating towers of the council, a shadowed figure rewatched the broadcast, pausing on Eli's words. The target had been marked, and the hunt would begin soon. The fortress was quieter now, but not peaceful. Rumors of Eli's defiance had spread like fire. Some called him brave, others called him stupid. But Eli didn't care about their words anymore. He cared about Liara. Late at night, he often found her staring at the sky, her glowing eyes lost in the stars. She didn't speak much, but something inside her had changed since Creel's visit. She seemed more awake, more focused, more dangerous. Eli began to notice strange things. Liara could move through the halls without sound. She could feel someone approaching before they turned the corner. And once, only once, he saw her touch a broken lantern, and it lit up with no power source. What was that? He asked her. She didn't answer, not at first, but the next evening. She led him to a hidden room, far below the fortress. Inside, the walls were covered in ancient markings, glowing with soft blue lines that pulsed like veins. In the center, a large crystal floated, humming quietly. "This," Liara whispered, "is the truth my father hid." Eli stepped closer, feeling a strange warmth in the air. "What is it?" "My bloodline," she said, "is not cursed. It is rare. It is powerful." She raised her hand, and the markings on the walls began to move, shifting and flowing like rivers of light. The crystal pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. "I was born with the gift of vision," she continued. I can see energy, not just in machines, but in people, in space, in everything. Eli stared in disbelief. You're an energy bender? She nodded. An ancient form, long forgotten, feared by the Council. If they knew how strong it has become in me, they would destroy this place. And me. Eli walked around the room, touching one of the glowing lines on the wall. It felt alive. Why? Hide this? He asked. Because the king was weak, she said. He feared what I might become. He feared the Council more than he loved me. But he chose you in his will, Eli pointed out. Leora turned to him, her voice low. No. He chose you to protect me. He knew what was coming. Before Eli could respond, the walls shook with a sudden tremor, the crystal dimmed, and a loud alarm echoed from above. Leora's eyes widened. They found us. Eli grabbed her hand. Come on. They rushed through hidden tunnels, dodging crumbling stone and flickering lights. When they reached the upper levels, smoke was pouring through the windows, drones were flying outside, scout class. Armed fast, the guards were already fighting back. But they were outnumbered. Leora stood by the broken window, her hands glowing with energy, her face calm, her hair lifting slightly in the air. Stay behind me, she said. Eli nodded, shielding his eyes as she raised both hands. A pulse of light shot out from her chest, spreading through the sky like a wave. The drones froze mid-air, then dropped like stones. Eli stared in awe. You. Stop them all. Leora fell to her knees, breathing hard. Only for now. He knelt beside her, holding her steady. The Council knows now, he said. They're coming for you. Leora looked into his eyes, her voice shaky but firm. Then we run, we fight, and we make them regret ever mocking us. In the darkness beyond the sky, warships were moving, silent and fast. Their commanders had seen enough. The girl they had mocked was no longer hiding, and the human they laughed at had just become her greatest weapon. For 3 days and 3 nights, Eli and Leora traveled in silence, hidden beneath the stars. The royal fortress had been lost, burned to ash by orbital fire, but they escaped through secret tunnels built long ago by rebels and forgotten kings now. They were fugitives, not just from the Galactic Council, but from the galaxy itself. They flew in an old diplomatic cruiser, slow and unarmed. Eli fixed its systems piece by piece while Leora sat near the window, watching nebulae drift past like clouds of memory. The silence between them was not empty. It was heavy with thought, with decisions unspoken, with feelings they both didn't know how to name yet. Then a signal came through, unexpected. It was from High Chancellor Viren, one of the few council members not known for cruelty. Eli Cross, Princess Leora, the message began. The council invites you to attend a public gathering in peace. For the sake of clarity and truth. Eli narrowed his eyes. It's a trap. Leora didn't move. Yes, she said. But it's also a stage. You want to go? Eli asked, surprised. If they want the galaxy to see me, Leora replied, then let the galaxy see all of me. The next day, they arrived at Orbit Hall, a massive floating city above a trade moon. The place sparkled with gold and glass. But the air was thick with eyes, cameras, and silent judgment. The gathering was already in motion when they walked in. Every noble, every media drone turned to look at them. Eli walked tall beside her, wearing a black coat made from Leora's old royal banners. She walked in robes that shimmered with living light, her own creation, woven from energy threads only she could see. Chancellor Viren greeted them with a practiced smile. We're honored, he said politely. Please, speak freely to the people. Leora stepped forward, voice calm. I was born in shame, hidden for what I looked like. My own father locked me away, not because I was weak, but because I was strong. Murmurs filled the room, she continued. The council calls me cursed. They fear my bloodline, because they cannot control it. Creel rose from his seat, fake smile sharp as a blade. And now you drag a human into your lies. Do you plan to crown him too? Eli stepped forward before Leora could answer. I don't care about crowns. He said, "I care about truth, and she is the only honest thing in this whole room." A loud gasp rolled through the crowd. Creel snarled, "Then let us show them the truth." He clapped his hands, and a group of armored guards marched in, weapons raised, aiming straight at Eli and Liara. The crowd panicked. Drones flew higher for a better shot. Nobles stepped back, pretending not to know what was coming. Eli reached for Liara's hand, but she was already moving. Her robes unraveled into lines of living light, surrounding her like wings. With a single breath, she pushed her hands outward, and time seemed to freeze. The guards stopped mid-step, their weapons stuck in the air. The hall dimmed, the lights trembling under her power. "I am not a monster," she said softly, "but I am done hiding from those who are." She released the guards, not with violence, but with forceful silence. Their weapons dropped, and they fell to their knees, unable to move. The council watched in stunned silence. Eli walked to the center of the room and said, "This is what you tried to bury. This is the future you mocked." Some in the crowd began to clap, slow, hesitant, but real. Others whispered, a few even bowed. The galaxy was watching, and something had changed. In the shadows of the upper decks, a masked figure turned off their camera feed and whispered into a "Come. She's more powerful than we thought. Begin phase 2. Because the trap had failed. But the war had just begun. The news spread like fire across the stars. Princess Liara faces the council and walks away unharmed. Human defender. Challenges galactic law. She's not a curse, she's a weapon. Every system, every colony, every hidden resistance cell played the footage. Some cried, some stared in awe. Some sharpened their blades. For the first time in generations, someone had stood against the council and survived. Not just survived, shined on the edges of forgotten planets. Slaves looked up from their chains. Hybrids once mocked for their bodies whispered her name like a prayer. In the spaceports and scrapyards, rebels began to move. Eli and Liara had vanished after the incident, traveling in secret aboard a smuggler's ship named HFY. The crew was mixed, half human, half alien, all outcasts, but loyal to Liara's cause. The captain, a tall woman with silver eyes named Mara Vex, welcomed them without question. "I've waited years to see the council tremble," she said. "You made them blink, princess. Now let's make them bleed." Liara wasn't the same anymore. She smiled less, spoke carefully. Her power was growing, but so was the pressure. Ailey saw it in her eyes, the weight of being more than a symbol, more than royal. "You're becoming the storm," he told her one night, as the stars rolled by outside the window. "I don't want to be a storm," she said quietly, "but maybe I have to be." They spent days moving between rebel hideouts, building alliances. Liara showed her gift to rebel leaders, not to scare them, but to inspire. She healed broken machines with a touch, recharged power cells with her hands, and even calmed a child dying of radiation burn just by holding her. She was no longer ugly, no longer cursed. She was hope, but hope is dangerous, especially to tyrants. The council declared her a threat to galactic unity. They labeled Eli a traitor and put a bounty on his head. 5 million credits, dead or alive. Bounty hunters came in waves, and none returned. Eli learned fast, fought harder. He wasn't a warrior, but he was smart and stubborn. And Liara trusted him with her life. One night, they stopped at an old mining colony that had gone dark months ago. The rebels there had tried to fight back and paid the price. The walls were scorched, the skies full of smoke, but in the deepest tunnels, survivors waited, half-starved. Afraid, Liara walked among them, glowing softly, hands outstretched. She didn't speak, just shared her warmth, her strength, her light, and when she finally spoke, her voice echoed through the stone halls. "The council built this galaxy with fear," she said. "Let us tear it down with unity." They raised their fists, not in anger, but in promise. That night, new banners were painted on walls, the symbol of a rising flame with 2 eyes inside it. One human, one alien. The rebellion had begun. Not with weapons, but with a girl the galaxy had laughed at and a human no one believed in. In the cold halls of the Council Citadel, Creel watched the latest reports with shaking hands. They're gaining ground, one advisor said. She's turning ghosts into soldiers. Creel said nothing. His eyes were locked on the map, red dots blooming across once dead systems. She's too powerful, someone whispered. What do we do? Creel turned slowly, his voice colder than space. We erase them, he said. All of them. Far above a silent moon, a hidden fleet came online. Ships with no flags, no mercy, built for one purpose only. To destroy the girl they once mocked, and the human who made her believe she was more than a curse. The stars were on fire above Velmorax Prime, the heart of the Galactic Empire. A war was tearing through the skies. Liara's rebellion had grown from whispers to a roar. From the cold moons to broken colonies, creatures of all races had risen. Not for gold, not for glory, but for her, and standing at her side always was Eli Cross. No longer a quiet mechanic from a dusty station. Now he wore armor forged in rebellion. His eyes sharp, his hands steady, the Council fleet waded in orbit, ships black and sharp like knives, their weapons hummed with power. Ready to erase Liara and everything she stood for, but she did not hide. She stood on the deck of her flagship, the Ashfire, her robes swirling with living light. Her eyes glowed with controlled energy, her voice calm as the void. This is where it ends, she said. Where they thought I was weak, this is where they kneel. Ally stood beside her, hand on the console. You sure about this? I was born for this, she whispered. They just didn't know it. The battle began with silence, then screams. Fighters darted between cruisers, blasts of energy lighting up the sky. But Liara had one weapon the Council didn't. Herself. She stepped onto the front platform of the ship, raised her hands, and sent a pulse through the void. Not of destruction, but of command. The enemy ships trembled, systems glitching, energy failing. Her gift tore through metal and code like wind through leaves. Some ships fell without firing a single shot, others turned and fled. But Creel's flagship remained. At the center of the storm, he appeared on screen, face twisted with rage. You're still a mistake, he spat. You will never be queen. Liara answered with silence. Then her ship charged forward, straight at his. A final boarding party. Eli, Liara, Mara, and a team of rebels cut through the enemy halls, room by room, step by step, until they reached the throne chamber. Creel waited there, blade in hand, armored like an ancient king. You think you've won? He growled. You think your love and lights will matter? No, Liara said softly, but truth will. The fight was fast, brutal. Eli blocked Creel's first strike with a metal rod, while Liara struck with waves of pure energy in the Kugdas. And it was not her power that won. It was Eli's courage, a human's bare hands, and a promise kept. Creel fell, silent and small. Hours later, the halls of the Velmorax throne palace echoed with chants. Not fear, not anger, but joy. Liara walked through the golden gates, her new crown hovering above her head, not made of metal, but light. The nobles who once mocked her now bowed low. She turned to Eli, holding out her hand. He hesitated, then took it, the cameras flashing. But he only saw her. You were never a curse, he whispered. You were always the crown. She smiled, eyes shining. And you were the one who wore it first. From that day on, they ruled not by fear, but by truth. The galaxy never forgot the girl they once laughed at, and the human who turned their laughter into fire.